Congratulations, you've made it to the end of another week and another week of Guided by Faith podcast. I've really enjoyed doing this week. It's a fun topic, dating. It's fun to date if you're in the right spot and place, but let me remind you quickly what we've walked through. We've started off with biblical principles, biblical passages that I think help lay a great groundwork for dating, because dating itself is not ever mentioned in the Bible. And probably the writers of the Bible would be horrified. I know they would, because I am, at modern Western dating practices. They're terrible. And a lot of them are just prepping people for divorce. They're practicing little marriages that are not really marriages, and then practicing little divorces, which lower people's commitment. So we don't want to model that. Guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the springs of life. Whether you eat, drink, whatever you do, do it for the glory of God. So we have talked through questions to know about why you want to date in the first place, questions to know about yourself before you get into a dating relationship, then minimum questions you want to know about somebody else before you would ever think about dating them. And so even with all of that, reality is sometimes we're going to get in these relationships and they're not going to work out, and you're going to get your heart broken. And so today I just want to talk about how to heal from heartbreak if you've been in one of these situations. And let's be honest, as much as we sometimes like to act like the relationship didn't really matter, as much as we try to guard our heart, or sometimes we don't bother to guard our heart at all, they hurt. They hurt really bad. And so what do you do if you found yourself in, like maybe right now, you're in the midst of heartbreak? How do you heal? Let me give you 5 things. We're not going to spend a long time on each one of these, but first off, grieve realistically. Grieve realistically. What do I mean by that? First off, you're hurting. You're sad. It's worth grieving over. If you've been in a long-term relationship, you're probably very deeply connected. You've possibly made some mistakes. You've possibly compromised your body in the process. You probably have a lot of regrets. You have things to grieve. But I also want you to grieve realistically. This is not the end of the world. You are not the first person to have your heart broken. You are not the person who has had their heart broken the worst. I can almost guarantee that. Only one of you in the whole world is that person. Very unlikely it's you, even if you're deeply, deeply hurt. So I want you to grieve, but I want you to grieve realistically, that this truly isn't the end of the world, and there's a lot of joy to be had ahead. Secondly, tell yourself the truth. Tell yourself the truth. Sometimes when we have our heart broken, we will just collapse on ourselves, and we'll tell ourselves all kinds of lies of, I'm not worth it. There's nobody out there for me. I'm never going to find somebody as good as this person. And you need to tell yourself the truth. You are made in the image of God. You are made by God and for God. And if God himself delights in you, if God finds pleasure in you, and he is the all-knowing creator of the universe, and he has everything for his pleasure, and he finds pleasure in you, then you're certainly worth it for somebody else. So tell yourself the truth. Your identity and your value is in being made in the image of God, and then hopefully putting your faith in Jesus Christ, because then you are a child of God. Far more important than who likes you or doesn't like you, or who loves you or doesn't love you on this earth, although I know those are heartbreaking. The next thing, just please don't self-sabotage. You had something hard happen. Don't binge anything. Don't binge eat. Don't binge do heroin. Don't binge on new relationships. A rebound relationship is a terrible way to get over a broken heart, because you're using that other person and you're sabotaging yourself. So don't self-sabotage. Don't take a sad, hard, bad situation and make it worse by doing things that your future self has to live with the consequences of. And sometimes that self-sabotage is going back to that person, even though you know they're bad news right now, but it's just, I just miss how they make me feel, or I just want to be with them again. Don't self-sabotage. You are worth it. Then next, what do you do then? Draw near to Jesus. Draw near to Jesus. I don't mean that as a cliche. I mean that as actually healing. Psalm 34:18 says, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted, and he saves the crushed in spirit. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted, and he saves the crushed in spirit. And I want you to know that God is near you and he will save the crushed in spirit. So if you are brokenhearted and your spirit is crushed, you are in the perfect place to draw near to God. Tell him your problems, cry out to him, ask him to help, and he's there. And look, it's not going to be fixed in a moment, but it will be fixed. Wounds heal. They just don't typically heal immediately. Draw near to Jesus. Then finally, preach the gospel to yourself, right? Looking at this through the lens of the gospel, I want to preach the gospel to myself. How do I interpret this event in light of the fact that Jesus died and rose again for me and for the world? Jesus became man. He endured hardship, heartbreak, betrayal, all of this. Jesus died on the cross. So he took the punishment for every wrong thing that I did in my relationship. Jesus rose from the dead, showing that God accepted that punishment, and that I can put my faith and trust in him. And then Jesus is coming back. This is not the end of the story. It's just a part of the story. Let's not act like it's the whole story. It's just going to be a blip. It may even be one of those blips that, by the time the story's done, you don't even bother to mention. But I know right now it feels like a lot. So preach the gospel to yourself. Remind yourself of the truth of who God is, who you are in God, and what he's done for you. So again, you're going to get your heart broken at some point or another, whether it's through a dating relationship or through a friendship that breaks or through your kids or through your parents. So you have to do these things. Grieve realistically, tell yourself the truth, don't self-sabotage, draw near to Jesus, preach the gospel to yourself. And if you'll do this, I promise you, the Lord will meet you and the Lord will heal you and you will be better on the other side. So don't lose heart. It's been a great week. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you next week.